Hi there, Rick Ragosa here with another session on Mastering the Guitar with Community 10. I hope you've been enjoying the series. The whole motivation is to reveal some of the basic principles in learning how to play the guitar and for you to realize that it's a possibility for everyone. It's just a matter of applying the right techniques and just the right practice habits, and before you know it you can be making sounds and pleasurable sounds and understanding what's going on about the instruments. The instrument that can be transferred to piano or whatever that it is that you're trying to play. Some of the theory that's being revealed in this series is applicable to anything that makes sounds. Okay? So up until now, we've been looking at the last few shows. We started incorporating the key of C, the key of G. We've got 5 basic keys to cover in this first phase of this however you want to call this series, or I call it a phase 1 that equips a student with enough information to be able to play in 5 different keys, and that's also basic chords as well as melody lines. Okay? But the important thing to reaffirm through all of this is that if you don't get your fingers moving and you don't make the connection from the neurons traveling from the brain to the necessary muscles, okay, that's the whole focus point of all of this. Because if you can eliminate the waste of energy that there is on both hands, and if you can eliminate the things that restrict you in your movement, dealing with just not proper posture and kind of being really slack with the right hand, and even practice habits, it's important to understand, and I want to reaffirm constantly, that what you play in a practice time, or anything, actually in anything that you do, the way that you approach it, your body has an articulate memory capacity that it will memorize, and it remembers what you're doing. And the unfortunate thing about your body is it doesn't know what's correct or what isn't. So your conscious mind has to help you dictate what's correct and what isn't. And my recommended advice is based on logic and just common sense. You want to have freedom of movement of the fingers to the fretboard. Okay? When you're playing, each of the strings, the tips of the fingers should be used. Okay, so that we have total freedom from the 1st string to the 6th string. My thumb here, peekaboo, is behind the neck so that the fingers can have freedom of access and they're not restricted, as some players hold their hands like this. And it might be fine if you're playing these 2 strings, but if you're working between playing certain chords and then lead lines, you have to shift. Well, I've narrowed that down as far as applying this and being in live situations for a lot of years now. There's not enough time to be moving and shifting in and out of position. So you want to keep that stable. And the same thing with the right hand. A lot of players, they'll limit themselves by placing their fingers resting on the guitar and they're trying to pick here, but then they can't really strum. Okay? So there's a place in the middle where you can have a relaxed right hand technique that gives you access to all the strings, okay, whatever you're trying to do, single string if that's the case, or chords, all right, just within that, the perimeters of the 6 strings in the area just over the frets. Now you'll find with technique-wise that closer to the bridge area, okay, it's going to give you a little sharper attack than when you get closer to the neck. So these are various techniques that you use when it comes down to making the sounds. Well, we're preparing ourselves for these things, okay? So it's important that you just tuck the fingers in, minimum movement. You don't want to be wasting. I've seen guitars and had to work in guitars that had literally the tops just worn right out because guys banging on them in their campfire routines or whatever they're doing. It's hard to say, getting a little too excited. You don't need to be beating up your guitar. Feel the strings. You guys are young. Hold the guitar. Feel the tension of the strings and what it takes. I call it the tunk sounds. Wrap your hand around the strings and just let the pick glide over it. Feel what it takes, the tension. Get used to how your body applies itself to this instrument. And that's the whole key to the approach and what I call the process of thinking, because when we eliminate some of the dexterity things out of the way, and there's terms for all these things, but just to be loose with the terms, just relax, don't waste a lot of energy. We want to minimize the waste of energy and maximize what you're using, okay? Now, I want to reinforce the basic exercise number 1, which is 4 fingers on any given position, okay? Position means that whatever 1st finger fret you're in line with, that's the position you're in. Right now, I'm in the 3rd position, so Third, fourth, fifth, and sixth frets are occupied by the first, second, third, and fourth fingers. And the important thing is if you're not warmed up and you can't play these basic drills, then I recommend you seriously face whether you want to play guitar or not, because it's important that you're relaxed with the simple things, and those simple things will lead to more complex things. But if you have to rush and force yourself, I would encourage you to, again, because the frustration that comes trying to achieve complex passages with minimal ability or technique, it's not worth the frustration and the efforts. Let your body tell you, at whatever natural level that your learning capacity is, your body will tell you when they can play fast. And you'll find some of you players have been playing for a while, you have learning curves. There's times when your fingers just seem to sit in the slots and they feel just smooth, and the next time you sit down, it's all stumbling around. And one way to eliminate some of the what they call flams is, a flam is, a drummer uses that as a technique where he'll kind of hit off the count to get a type of a flam sound, a little strengthened. The drummer, Phil Rudd, and a few of the guys who used to play for AC/DC, they're awesome on flams because it's a real strong snare attack. And a flam on the guitar is when you kind of, okay, there's like a delay. We want to eliminate that though. You want to combine the coordination between the left and right hand, that when you apply pressure with the first string, you're in ready position, you apply pressure, strike, and then release. And experiment with this, because that's all that is necessary with learning how to play this instrument. So once you know how to play one note correctly, okay, it's just a matter of repeating that on each of the strings. Now, for the sake of time and getting the maximum amount of data on these tapes, at times I will do this and I will rush through things, okay? But you should at home spend the time that it takes. Strike one string, stop it. Leave it on as a guide finger. There's variety of approaches to this. If you play these things enough and you get a little bored with them, well, then you don't have to go lateral. You can try the vertical approach where you play, okay? Just play each string in a fretted area. Now, as you see my fingers, they just naturally feel comfortable working together, so you don't see them all over the place like this. And that's taken a few years to actually tell them and to train them to not to go all over the place, okay? And that's a part of what I'm recommending. Watch what your fingers are doing. Get into habits of positive playing, you know, proper positioning, minimum movement. Get into habits and your body will pick up on this, and it'll eliminate learning time, and it'll also eliminate a lot of nonsense when it comes time to learning complex passages, okay? So the next step, as far as a finger exercise, we've been going through this, and I just want to reaffirm, as I have been doing, that basic shape, because that really is the key to learning this instrument. When you get the dexterity, your fingers will naturally become more fluent, okay? Then for some of you that are a little more complex in your playing, you can try doing these drills, combining strings. Like for example, watch this. My first finger's on the second string, so I'm going to use a sequence 1, 3, 2, 4, but I'm going to break up the combination on two different strings, okay? Are you ready? I'm going to play 1, 3 on the second string and 2, 4 on the first, all right? Okay, then I'm going to alternate and play 1, 3 on the first string and 2, 4 on the second, okay? Now, you can combine that as a set. 1, 3, 2, 4. Right? You get that? Now, once I get that, I can change the sets of strings and move up to the third and second. Okay? Same from the fourth to the third. And really what we're doing is combinations between two strings. And you'll find these basic sequences are all a part of little licks and vocabulary phrases and all that you'll find and recognize as you get on. The important thing now is that we're working on controlling what you're doing and literally telling your system what to do. The word deliberate comes to mind, and I've been using that a lot of years. Guitar really is deliberate motion. Nothing happens accidentally, okay? You deliberately send your hands and your fingers to certain places to get the specific sounds that you're trying to achieve. Okay? Making sounds and combining it, whatever phrase it is, jazz, country, blues, is a matter of just combining the basic notes. So once we get the dexterity part out of the way as far as a struggle and you work with it, your muscles of the hand need to be conditioned, okay? So before you practice each session, you people out there that are making this a family affair or doing this in a group, getting together and having your weekly guitar lesson, well, get together and have a warm-up first, okay? Record this program and record the programs, but have a little warm-up when you're practicing and get down these things. As far as stimulating some interest, just the fact that you can play the 2 strings doesn't limit you. We can get onto alternating. I can play a 1-3, for example, on the 1st string, and 2-4 on the 3rd. Okay? And really what's happening is there's a space of a string between the notes, all right? So treat these things as drills. Get your hands used to the fretboard. I found that the less time that I spent trying to learn these songs, you know, trying to put my fingers in the way that he's supposed to play these songs, the more time I spent to the drills, you know, just 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 or 2 3 2 3 across each string, getting a relationship with the fretboard, the easier learning how to play music became. And it became less and less, and still now. Literally, it takes seconds to learn new songs because the hand's familiar with the fretboard and it's ready for the signals. And now when you pick up off the net some tab music or whatever your trip is, it's a lot easier. Chord book with some basic songs, or you're learning something in school or church or whatever it is, you can pick up a lot easier, okay? Now the last couple of episodes we looked at the key of C, the key of G, and keeping up with that sequence now, we're going to look at the key of D, okay? The important thing is, as far as this process of thinking is, in order to play music, whether you're learning or actually playing or at whatever level you're at, you need to know some certain things. Basically, you have to start with the key that you're in. All the shapes and all the little phrases and chord patterns and everything that's involved with playing are broken down in keys. So first rule is you need to know what key you're in. And quite literally, no music exists out of a key, okay? Even the weirdest, wildest jazz fusion that's way out there, you know, to some people it sounds like noise, and some of it is noise, but it's controlled. Like, these people are deliberately choosing notes to sound like that. They are still interpreting that based on a key, okay? So the important thing to understand, the key that you are in starts with the same name, okay? And then that's where we get the major scale. For example, now, the key of D that we'll be learning starts on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and we would start with our 2nd finger. And as you've been watching these tapes, the major scale fingering goes like this. Now remember that each finger plays in its own fret area, okay? I consider them sometimes like neighbors, and each of them can play in their own yard, but they don't play in their neighbor's yard, okay? It's an important thing to understand at first. Eventually, you know, you'll be doing all sorts of things with fingers all over the place and shapes, and, okay, where fingers are playing. And when that time comes and you understand what you're doing, well, then you have the freedom to do that. In the learning stages, though, it's important to get that basic rule down, because if you don't, man, your fingers are all over the place, okay? Trust me, I've seen it. And it's been frustrating to try to have to hold people's fingers and, listen, just put it. So the basic rule is each finger has its own fret area to play in, okay? And we just play in their own yards, okay? So we're in the 4th position here, but the 2nd finger starts because that's our D note, okay? Now the pattern goes 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. Okay, I'll try that again. All right. And it's important. Hear the sounds. Recognize that. If this is the first show that you've seen of this series, just listen to the sounds. thing I want to reinforce with understanding scales is that they relate to numbers. If you have the aptitude to remember phone numbers, then you have the aptitude to be able to relate to these scales, okay? Now we're in the key of D. So we start on a D note, okay? Now, in understanding theory, okay, there's 5 basic families: major, minor, augmented, diminished, and dominant seventh. Each one of those has a formula that supports that, and that relates to the shape on the instrument, on any instrument actually. Pianos have their own basic shapes, okay? Whatever you're playing, any weird thing, flutes, if you're a flute tutor or whatever your story is, all the shapes are applicable to that, the major scale, and then how you apply it. Major triad, minor triad, or whatever changes you have to make to whatever mode you're playing in, okay? So on this at this introductory level, what we're learning how to play is a 1-4-5 cadence. And what that means is, of the major scale, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 digits that are in any key, okay, we're taking the first one out, the fourth one, and the fifth one, and making chords out of those, and those are the 3 chords that you usually play for most standard material. Well, of the last 50 or 60 years, modern man has been using approximately 8 different cadences, okay? So those are structured arrangements, 2-5-1s, 1-6-4-5s, 1-4-5s, okay? And you need to know that, because by knowing that, you'll listen to the radio and you go, hey, you know, actually, that's a 1-4-5 in the key of whatever it is, okay? And that helps catalog all the songs, because you really only need to know 1-4-5, and you'd be surprised at the zillions of songs out there that are 1-4-5. Root, subdominant, and dominant fifth, for those of you who have a little bit of theory background, okay? Now, all of this information can be just piled on real thick with theory and the terminology and all that. What I've done, actually, after learning a lot of this years and years and years ago, and getting right into the hardcore of it all, a lot of it is unnecessary unless you're one of those who just likes to talk about it all the time. You hear some of these guys, well, that's this mode or whatever, Mixolydian flat 5 mode or whatever it might be. Well, you can talk like that if you understand what you're talking about, but a lot of times who you're talking to isn't going to understand what you're talking about, and it's really unnecessary to talk like that, because everything that relates comes back down to numbers, okay? So at first, we're in the key of D for today, so we want to decipher what is our 1-4-5 in the key of D, okay? Plain and simple, 1-4-5, okay? So we start with D, we go D, E, F, G, and after G in the music alphabet, we go back to A. So the 1-4-5 in the key of D is D, G, and A, all right? We can verify that by looking at the major scale and playing our 1. We count along 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we find that this is a D, our 4 is a G, and our 5 is an A. D, G, and A. And just quickly, if I'm going to be building a rock chord, say for example, which is a root and a fifth, that's the impression that a 1-4-5 gives us, okay? Now, how we're going to look at this is still supporting open chords first, okay? So for those of you out there who are learning chords, for now you're going to have to look at the fingers, okay, until we make the contact point. At the end of the series, you should see a box number that you can send. It's box 369, Squamish, and that's Community 10, Mastering the Guitar, all right? And for those of you interested, send in your requests, any questions, your feedback, but there'll be paperwork available that will have a list of all the chords that are been used and applicable to these series, okay? And the point of that is you want to build a catalog of chords, but you want to build them in being relative to the keys that you learn them in, okay? Because we want to just focus on what's important and what's going to get you equipped with the tools so you can play music in the shortest period of time. After that, once the ball's rolling, then you can decide to expand and go on various styles, whatever. If you're into classical, the theory will apply. If you're into jazz, the theory will apply. Whatever turns you on, actually, okay? Once you get the basic theory and principles down, they're applicable to any style on any instrument, okay? So we're learning the 1-4-5 in the key of D, and this looks like a D chord, okay? So D chord, for those of you who know what a D chord looks like, it looks like that because it's based off of a major triad, the 1, 3, 5 of that key. 1, 3, 5, 8. So we've got a D, F sharp, and A. When we play a D, D, A, D, F sharp, when we play those notes in combination, we get a D triad sound, major triad, okay? Now there's various places to play that. Okay? Each one of those voices are a combination of the triad in D, D, F sharp, and A, okay? And some of this might be a little fast for you. Make copies of the tape, play them back, because what you need to get in your thinking process is that you start with 1, and then when you start with 1, the numbers follow that pattern, okay, in numerical association, and then it becomes quite simple, and as you build vocabulary and understanding, basically, it becomes so simple that you wonder how that you didn't ever figure it out yourself, okay? So we're in the key of D, so we've got the D triad, D, F sharp, and A. We can play. Okay, all right. Now the 4 chord in the key of D is something that we looked at. You'll also notice that in this series, the things that we learn that are new are relative to what we've already learned, and we're just adding increments of data to the big picture, and we're slowly just building a picture, a solid foundation of what theory is, as well as how it can be applied to the instrument that you're playing, okay, bass guitar, whatever it is. So right now we're learning the basic keys in 1, 4, 5, because as soon as we get the chords over with, we're going to learning how we can play melody lines over that, and we're going to combine them, which completes our phase 1, giving you the ability not only to strum the chords, but also to play little melody lines behind them and understand which notes, why certain notes work and why certain notes don't work. Okay, there's a reason for that. You guys who are playing already, or even some of you who have never picked up the thing and you're playing, you'll notice sometimes you might luck out on some pleasant sounds, but most of the time it's dissonance. Well, you're just playing notes that, you know, conscious combining aren't choosing. So once you know the formulas, you'll find that anybody can make pleasurable sounds, okay? Yes, even you, okay? Even you, Thelma? If he can play, anyone can play. All right? So the 4 chord in the key of D is G. So how you learn how to play a G chord is knowing that it's a major triad. A major triad is 1, 3, 5, okay? Don't get that confused with the 1, 4, 5. That's the formula we use to derive how to play, how to figure out which chords we're playing on. Now, once we know each of the root notes of the chords we're playing on, then we build triads off of those notes, okay? A major triad is 1, 3, 5, and that's what we're going to be dealing with. If I wanted to play a G minor chord, then I would put the G minor formula to effect, right? And apply that, and I'd get a G minor chord. If I wanted to play a G diminished chord, I would take the G diminished the diminished triad, applied to the notes that would be in G, based on that formula, and I would get a G diminished sound, okay? Just relax right now, don't get all panicked, because there's only 5 basic forms, and I will be revealing this to you, okay? So just hold back and we'll learn this in stages. So right now we're working with the major triad. Now we're learning the G chord. And we looked at the G chord, but we'll quickly look at it again. So what you need to know, first off, is your major scale, because if you don't know that, it's that, you know, that creek without a paddle story. Because you need to have a mother formula that everything's based off of. This is a diatonic instrument, and that means that it's tuned in arrangements of whole and half steps, okay? And that's what diatonic's all about, okay? It's predetermined setup, and it's tuned in accordance with the piano, natural C, okay? Middle C. So G, we're applying the G major triad, which is 1, 3, 5. Okay, G is 1, G, A, B is 3, 5 is D. So anywhere that you see a G, B, D, G, B, D, G, B, G, and apply them all together, okay, that produces a G triad. Any combination of those notes, okay, 1, 3, 5, G, B, D, will produce a G voicing, no matter where you play it on the neck. Okay? So that's what you need to know, is that all the time, some of you who have been playing already, if you know how to play the G chord, well, that is why you're putting your fingers there, because it's based off of a G major triad. Okay? Now, the fifth chord in the key of D is A. G, starting in D, G, and A. Okay? And again, there's so much information on how it applies, but the most important is starting someplace and then building on that. So we're working with open chords. A, as far as figuring out the notes that you're going to be needing to play, starts in the 5th fret, okay, 2 frets higher than the 4. If we were to learn the 1, 4, 5 starting on the D again, it's like D, G, and A. Okay, we could build bar chords on those. All right, 1, 4, 5. Okay, so we've got the G, or the D, G. Now we're going to learn the triad for A. A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You need to apply the major scale to that root note and then pick out the notes of the triad, which are in this case the major one, right? 1, 3, and 5. 1, 3, and 5. Okay? Now the key of C is the only key that involves with the natural notes. Okay? It's just natural. There's no sharps or flats or what they call enharmonic tunes or accidentals. Okay? As we get more deeper into theory and applying the various keys, they get a little bit more involved with understanding sharps and flats, okay? It is quite simple and it's a slight modification, so there's nothing to fear. A sharp raises a note a half step and a flat lowers a note a half step, which is 1 fret on the guitar, okay? So really when it comes down to it, it's pretty simple information. If you've got a C and you want to raise it a half step and play C sharp, well, you just move it up 1 fret, and then you've got a C sharp, okay? So if you know how to play a C minor chord, and you need a C sharp minor, you just move everything up a half step, okay? That's C sharp. It's the same triad, same shape, same theory deriving the chord, only that every note's sharped, okay? So in the key of A, I mentioned that because you'll notice that the first note is A, the second is B, but the third one, C is the 3rd fret, it's C sharp, okay? So we have to remember that. And this is why it's important to know your major scale, because you can double check then and make sure that it's correct. Someone might say, well, no, 1, 3, 5 in A is A, C, E. Well, yes, sort of it is. If you were just using basic letters, yeah, that's true, it is. But A, C, E happens to be, based on this diatonic instrument, an A minor chord. You need to raise the 3rd a half step to get C sharp to make it A major chord. Okay? So we've got A, C sharp, and E. Well, down in the first position, we go A, E, A, C sharp, 2nd fret, and open. And these 3 fingers are first finger. And the 2nd fret area produces our A chord. Okay? So we've got a D, G, A. D, G, and A. Okay? So remember, 1, 4, 5. Okay? And with that, start with your root note. Whatever key you're in, 1, 4, 5. Count it up. Okay? So don't forget your finger exercises. Don't forget to practice your major scale and your basic drills. All right? And next time we're going to be looking at the key of A. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed yourself, and we'll see you next time at Community 10's Mastering the Guitar.